If you're not sure if you're on the right social media platforms for your business, here are 5 questions to ask yourself. Who is my ideal audience and where do they spend their time online? Really get into the details of this, really think about the demographics and the interest of who you're trying to target. And you probably have more than one persona, so make sure you're doing this for all of them. You might actually need different strategies and different ways of approaching each audience, and that will also mean that you might need to be on different platforms for different purposes and to reach different people. The second question to ask is, what kind of content are we currently creating? Maybe what should we be creating? And then what platforms serve that kind of content best? For instance, if you just know your team does not have the bandwidth to create a lot of video content, probably pretty pointless to be over on TikTok. And maybe you also need to think about the fact that if your audience really spends a ton of time there and you're not currently making video content, then maybe it's time to start investing in that and make a change. The next thing to think about is, what are my actual business goals and what do I think social media is going to do to help me achieve those? If it's purely lead generation, if it's authority generation, if it's credibility, if it's building brand awareness, whatever your actual goals are, make sure that you're really taking those into account on what social media platforms you choose, because each platform really is a life of its own. It has its own purpose and it has its own kind of community and space. So depending on what your goals are, that should also factor into the equation. While you never want to copy your competition, asking yourself what your competition is doing and how they are being successful across different platforms is a really helpful tool. Again, you're not going to want to go copy them, but it is important to see what other people in your industry are doing and what platforms they're on right now. The last thing to consider, something I mentioned a little bit earlier, is what kind of resources do you actually have to manage all of this? If you just know that you know your team and you know your situation and you only have so much time, where do you need to invest those resources most effectively to get the most out of the content strategy, to get the most out of the platforms you're leveraging? Be really realistic about what you have and what you're willing to invest, because consistency is the most important thing of all. Again, great example, if you just know you're not going to consistently create video content, don't go on a platform that's really video centric. You're just going to feel like you failed, like you haven't got enough content out. It just was never going to be a good fit for you. Those 5 questions can be a great place to start to figure out what platforms are going to best fit your business and your goals.